Who cares more, Ms. Weingarten? Who cares more about a child's education, the teachers' union or the child's parents?
I would say that, Mr. Jordan or Representative Jordan, parents and teachers care about kids. Obviously, parents care about their own kids more than probably anyone else, but teachers and parents are real partners in children's education.
Okay, that's fine. So you would say, but I ask you, who cares more? You would say parents.
Oh, parents care. Look, I'm not here to be in a competition. Parents are so important in children's lives.
No kidding.
Teachers are so important in children's lives
I agree.
too.
Why'd you repost and praise the op-ed that was in the Washington Post? Parents claim they have the right to shape their kids' school curriculum. They don't. And then you posted that and you said this was a great piece that people should read. Head of Teachers Union praises op-ed claiming parents don't have a right to shape their kids' curriculum. You really believe that?
The headline of that op-ed was not appropriate compared to the actual work in that op-ed. The work in that op-ed talked about, if you actually read that op-ed.
You disagree with the headline then?
No, I disagreed with the headline. The work in that op-ed talked about how parents and teachers have to have a role in kids' education.
So should the headline have read, parents claim they have a right to shape their kids' school curriculum? They do? Should that have been what the headline said?
I don't, Mr.
Well, let me ask you, let me just ask you straightforward. Just let me ask straightforward. Do parents have a right to shape their kids' curriculum?
Parents have a right to have a role in their kids' curriculum, yes.
Who are the extremist politicians? You did 25 pages of your written testimony. You had 14 pages. Your law firm had, I think, the other 11. And right at the end of the main body of your written testimony, before you get into the issue of today about the consultation you guys had with the CDC, you say in this last paragraph, attacks by extremist politicians have undermined teachers in schools.
Well,
who are the extremist politicians?
I think you just heard one, sir.
So Ms. Green's one of them.
I think, look,
okay, that's what you think.
I think the issue is the culture wars that are going on in schools right now, banning books, undermining teachers.
How about this statement? I don't think parents should be telling schools what to teach. You just told me a few minutes ago you didn't agree with that sentiment. Is that a statement that's a statement from a politician? Is that extremist?
I believe that parents have to have a role in kids' education. And in fact, when I was teaching at Clara Barton High School, we had parent engagement all the time.
Who said this statement?
I would bring, if you want me to finish, I'll finish. I, like so many other teachers, used to do, I was a high school social studies teacher. I know you were a wrestling coach. I was a high school social studies teacher.
My wife taught, our kids went to public school. We appreciate good teaching.
Yeah,
my high school coach had a huge impact on my life.
I know, and I honor that.
Same here.
But so what I would do, and so many other teachers
But I asked you a specific question. I don't think parents should be telling schools what to teach. Do you know who made that statement?
I don't know.
September 28, 2021, candidate for governor in the state of Virginia. You know who made that statement?
I don't. Are you talking about Mr. McAuliffe?
I am talking about Mr. McAuliffe. He made that statement. Is that extremist? Is that an extremist political statement?
In fact, what I did, Mr. Jordan, was when I heard that
No, we know what you did. You endorsed him and did a six-figure ad buy. Your organization did 18 days later.
When I did, Mr. Jordan, is when I heard that statement, I called Mr. McAuliffe and I told him I disagreed with him on that statement.
But it wasn't enough to get you to not do a six-figure ad buy for his campaign.
Well, what the ad buy did was do what we thought Mr. McAuliffe was, which was really supportive
that same paragraph on page 12. I just got a minute. Same paragraph on page 12. You say most Americans disapprove of the culture wars that have saturated education policy. Who started the culture wars?
I know that when you have banning of books, like a book about Anne Frank, like a book about Roberto Clemente, like a book about Ruby Bridges, that's wrong.
Those who think, let me ask you this,
those things were in
those
Florida.
who think boys should compete against boys in sports, or those who think boys can compete against girls in sports, which side started the culture war? Which one of those positions?
Sir, I am talking about, when I talk about the culture wars, I am talking about things like book banning. I'm talking about things like stopping teachers from teaching honest history.
Is it starting a culture war if you think literature should be age appropriate? That's not
I
starting a
believe
culture
that
war.
literature should be age appropriate too.
Okay. I'm out of time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I now recognize Chairman Gomer of the full committee for his minutes of questions.
Thank you. On February 12th, 2021, the Biden administration released its first school reopening guidance, which frankly might be better described as school closing guidance, since it recommended keeping 90% of America's schools closed. Documents and testimony gathered by this committee show the CDC and AFT, American Federation of Teachers, worked closely on this guidance. Some of AFT's suggestions were included nearly word for word by Director Walensky herself. In a transcribed interview, a career CDC official testified that this level of coordination was, quote, uncommon, end quote. That's what we're here to find out, as the chairman said. Why did the AFT get uncommon access to the CDC and the Biden administration? According to documents we've reviewed, AFT first received a copy of the draft reopening guidance on January 27, 2021. Is that correct?
No.
Do you know when you first got a copy of the guidance?
According to the documents that we sent to you, what we believe is that we got the guidance from NIOSH and the draft guidance from NIOSH, which is a committee within the CDC, as well as the CDC themselves,
Okay.
after the conversation we had on January 29th.
What's it called? NIOSH is part of the CDC.
Correct.
Right.
We got,
So-
I think you're looking at a document. Can I see the document you're
Well,
looking
we'll get
at?
them to you. The
No,
draft
it
guidance.
just- I
No,
might be
listen,
able
I'm
to-
talking. I'm not. I run a committee too.
Sorry.
We're trying to work together. We have 5 minutes, so we're trying to get this, get as much out as we can. This is very important. I have kids in the public school system, in a school system that was shut down longer than average in the state of Kentucky, and it's bad. Parents are mad. Our kids are behind. We're trying to find answers. We want to prevent the problem in the future. The draft guidance is marked pre-decisional and says, please do not distribute, yet it was provided anyway. Now, do you know if any other groups the CDC consulted with received a copy of this guidance at the time?
I have no idea.
Do you know when the guidance was finally published?
I believe the guidance was published on February 12th.
When asked, is it common to send deliberative or pre-decisional guidances outside of the government to CDC partners? A career CDC scientist responded, we may send summaries like the day before we were going to release something. But the American Federation of Teachers got a full document, and you got it 2 weeks before, according to our record. And
Do you want me to respond, sir, or no?
I'll ask a question. Did AFT provide any draft language to the CDC for inclusion into this guidance before it was published?
So we had the meeting with the CDC on January 29th. My recollection is that we got a draft of the guidance after that, even though I think the document that you're reading has another date on it.
Is it common for outside groups to send draft language to the CDC?
What we did was we went through the areas that we raised because the presumption was, how do we reopen and keep schools open? And we talked about issues of immunocompromised adults, and the
So
CDC
did the
said to
CDC
me,
accept any of the
The
edits
CD
you all proposed?
the CDC asked for language on that, which we provided.
So
that one
so they
piece of
accepted
language,
some- okay.
so they asked us for language on immunocompromised workers, and we presented that language to them.
So when we were, during the interview with the CDC career employee, it was asked if between 2001 and 2021, had he ever incorporated edits or additions that came from an outside group? And the career scientist responded, I don't remember any assistance. So to summarize, AFT was provided with a full draft copy of the guidance 2 weeks before publication, suggested line-by-line edits.
No, we did not, sir.
Did
We
not?
did not suggest line-by-line edits to the document.
Well, do you remember how many edits that you suggested?
We suggested concepts, sir, which we have submitted as part of the document request you asked. We suggested concepts, including robust
Do
testing.
you know how many edits were included?
One.
Do you remember what that edit was?
The reasonable accommodation issue. And then, in addition, about a week later, when we were going back and forth with all of the groups, there were several other meetings with different groups and things like that. You saw, and the chairman just said this, the issue about having a review if there was a new variant. We had seen someone had leaked language to either the New York Times or the Washington Post, and so that's when we suggested that if there's a new variant, there should be a review. And there were variants, my recollection is there were variants at that time. So those were the two things that we suggested in the 38 pages that showed up in the guidance.
Well, I'll yield back, Mr. Chairman, and say that it's unusual for political union to have such a role in scientific guidance process, and hopefully we can find more answers in this hearing. I yield back.
Now recognize the ranking